Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. Today's video has got a little bit of shabby chic, a little bit of cottage core, and just a touch of glam. So let's get started. So my first project is one of those old cosmetic cases that women used to carry back when I was a little girl. And I'm painting the entire piece with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. Now, when I first painted it, I did not paint the handle or the hardware because I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with it when I painted it. But you'll see later on what I do with the handle. And so what I'm going to be doing is get it all painted, and I think it took at least 2 coats of paint. So what I'm using now is a new transfer by Redesign with Prima, and it's called Paisley Lover, and it is gorgeous. It has all those perfect pinks and greens together. So I go ahead and I start cutting out some of the different pieces from the transfer because it has 2 large sheets of it, and some of the pieces are rather large, and the cosmetic case is not that big, so I just kind of pick and choose which ones I want to use. So the first one is one of the larger Paisleys, and I put it up on the top, and I hang it off to the side on the left. Now, let me just let you know, you probably won't see me do this in the video, but I go ahead and put the transfer on, and then you transfer it with the little stick, and then when you get it all off, that plastic that you peel up, you take it and you rub it back over that transfer just to burnish it. But one thing I want to make sure I say is once you get it painted, before you put the transfer down, make sure you seal it. That's really important. And I use Rust-Oleum clear sealer. So the thing that you don't see me do is to go back with like a little X-Acto knife and just slice that transfer wherever the cosmetic case opens up. But I go ahead and put the whole transfer down so that I don't have to try to line it up later. And as I'm putting the transfer down, I put some up at the top and on the front, and then just a tiny bit on the right on the side and a little bit on the left on the side. But over on the side of the top of the cosmetic case that you don't see anything, I'll be doing something special with that in just a few minutes. But this is a beautiful transfer, and a while back I did a video with a pink Paisley napkin, and I was talking about how I always loved Paisley. And, someone mentioned, well, why don't you Google and go on Amazon and look for Paisley? I really hadn't thought about it. And so then this just happened to pop up, and I couldn't wait to get started on it. Okay, so I've got all my transfers down, and I decide I'm going to just go ahead and paint that handle, and I put 2 or 3 coats on it. Now, because I've already put that transfer on, that little hardware over to the right, I try to use like a little skinny brush to paint that on because I don't want to accidentally get paint on those transfers. So since, it's not going to stand up straight, I just put a little bit of parchment paper up underneath it to protect it. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I get these little sheets of parchment paper off of Amazon. It comes in a really big box. And I guess maybe if you were going to be making sandwiches like they used to a long time ago, and they would wrap sandwiches in parchment paper, it would be good for that. But I use them all the time, and it saves me from having to use like brown craft paper. Okay, now this is a new mold, and it's beautiful. It's called Just Paisley, and it's also Redesigned with Prima, and it's really large. But I made it with resin. I didn't show you that part. And remember, resin is 2 parts equal. You pour it in, and in 10 minutes it sets up. I use it a lot in my videos. Now, when I take this one out, it is just barely set up because I want to be able to bend it. Now, when you make things with resin, when it first comes out of that mold, you've got a little bit of window where you can kind of move it around and adjust it. But if you wait too long, then it sets up really hard and you can't. It's really stiff. So I go ahead and decide where I'm going to put it on this little cosmetic case. I have not glued it down yet. And I just use a lot of blue painter's tape. And I just kind of leave it setting on that for just a little bit, just so that it can mold to that cosmetic case as it cools down, if that makes sense. Once I feel like it's set up all the way, then I put it on with Titebond glue. But because I don't want it to slide off at all, because it's going to be some on the side and some on the front, then I pull out my blue painter's tape again and I just put a bunch of it on there to hold it on until that Titebond glue sets up. Now, one thing I'm very careful about is I don't put any painter's tape on that transfer. I don't know if it would pull it up, but I didn't want to take that chance. And I felt like as much blue painter's tape as I put on it, it wasn't going to move at all, so I didn't worry about it. And Titebond glue sets up so fast that it wasn't very much longer before I was able to pull off that blue painter's tape. But that's how much I put it on. It was like a big old bandage on that cosmetic case. But it really held it on. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm going to go back and paint that mold that I made out of resin. And it's already white, but I wanted to put a little bit of white paint on it. Okay, now what I'm putting up on the top is a stamp from the Icy Paris stamp set by Redesign. Now, unfortunately, that stamp set has been retired. And I hate it because it's such a pretty stamp, but I still use it. And then I put some gold gilding wax over all of the hardware, and I put it on top of that mold as well, just to kind of give it a little bit of glam. But what do you think? I think it's beautiful. And this was actually something that I have had for a pretty good while, and I'm not going to be putting it in my vendor booth. But it's really pretty. And I'm so glad that viewer mentioned just, Google some Paisley, because I really do love it. But I really like the way this turned out. And I think this might be my favorite project today. But there's another one coming up that I like a whole bunch too. So it's going to be a tie between this one and the other one. So I'll let you decide. Okay, my next project, I wanted to use some of the new tissue decoupage paper by Redesign. I posted it recently that it was going to be for sale. And this one in particular, the name of it is called Olivia. And so this is actually just a little cabinet. It's like what you would put maybe your baby doll clothes in. And I found it recently. And in the beginning, you saw it outside. It was painted, well, it's not really wood, but it looked like wood. And I bought it originally for my granddaughter so she could put her baby doll clothes in it, because she loves her baby dolls and she likes to dress them. But then once this paper opened up for sale, I wanted to show you this particular technique. And I wanted to do something special with it. So she does not know that Grammy bought this cabinet for her. So if you see us out in public, do not tell her, because then she'll be mad at me. So she's seen it, but she has no idea what it was for originally. So this tissue decoupage paper is so pretty, and I love the color of it. Now, I painted the whole shell of the little cabinet black. I actually spray painted it to start off with. But on the front doors, what I did was I went back and I painted them white, because anytime you decoupage something, it looks better most of the time for it to be painted white behind it. And I know I have seen some people actually paint the back of decoupage paper, but to me it was just easier to paint that exact piece. And I put it down just a little bit at a time with DIY liquid patina. And the reason that you see me trim off some on the sides is because I wanted the design of those little flowers to be more in the middle. And then I go ahead and I put that first piece of decoupage paper on the one side of the door or one side of the cabinet. But I don't slice it yet. What I do is I go ahead and start putting it on the other side door. And then once it's all dry, then I use an X-Acto knife to go and slice it. And then I'm just using some cellophane. Now, you'll notice that there's a crease in it. So yesterday I called Becky at Micah Daughters and I'm like, can I press the tissue decoupage paper? And she said yes. And that would have gotten rid of that crease. But you have to do it on the lowest setting with like no steam or anything. So just be super careful if you do. Now, this is a new mold, and it's so pretty. It's kind of Grecian looking. And it's actually made by a company called LeBlanc, and I will have it in the description box below. But it has this beautiful medallion on one side of it. And so I poured 2 of them with resin. And you'll see what I'm going to do with it in a minute. So I actually took some Dixie Belle apricot because I was trying to get it at least part of the color of the florals in the decoupage paper. And so I put a little bit of gray in there. And so now I'm drilling a hole in it. And the reason I am because now the resin's really hard. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use these as a medallion that I put on top on the door, and then I push the little doorknob inside of that little hole. So sometimes, you know, when you get a dresser, it might have like a little medallion and then the doorknob is on top of it. That's what I wanted you to see. And I wanted you to see the technique and how you could use it. I still really wasn't happy with the color of it. I had my mom to look at it, and we thought if we painted the medallion black, it wasn't going to show up. And she wasn't really sure if gold would have been the right color. So I'm still not sure if I'm happy about the color all the way. And I may just take the medallion off because I did not glue it on. I could have, but I didn't want to because I'm still not sure about it. So what do you think? What color would you have done? I actually even thought about doing it white, but then it was too stark at that point. And so I painted the inside of it, and it matches the color of the decoupage paper. And what you don't see is that the little dowel that you hang down, that you hang the baby doll clothes on, I went on and like cut that out. So that way, if my granddaughter opens it up, she won't figure it out. But I think if she saw that little dowel going across it, she'd know that Grammy messed it up. And then she'd be asking me about it. So if you're liking the video so far, make sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, we would love for you to be part of our family. So let's get going some more. All right. Here's another one of my little pumpkins. I have shown y'all a lot of different ways to use pumpkins this fall. So now we're going to go for the Glamorous pumpkin. And this is one of those little cardboard stand-up pumpkins that you get at Dollar Tree. And I painted it with just black paint. And this is a transfer. And it's actually by this company called Hocus Pocus. And I believe I got that from Micah Daughters as well. And it's a silver foil transfer. And I'll make sure to link that. And so I just picked out several pieces that would work well together and transferred them on. Now, remember, you paint it, you put sealer on it, and then you put the transfer on it. But because that transfer is different than most transfers, I used like a little white glove on my hand to kind of burnish it down. And this is some silver glittery eyelash yarn. And I just wrap it around my fingers a few times and tie a little knot in it. And there's my little shabby bow. Now, one thing I didn't show you, this is an old mold that I had made last Christmas, and it's the IOD Baubles mold. And it's just one-sided, and I painted it with silver paint. I put the little shabby bow on it, and then I hot glued like a little button on it. And it's just so cute. I love it. It's just black and silver. It's just very basic, but I just think it's so pretty. And, you know, you see these little things at the Dollar Tree. So just, let your imagination run wild. And how can you decorate them? You can decorate them in any kind of style. All right, here's my other favorite piece. Now, this is a scrap piece of wood, and I am using gesso on it. Now, I used that in my project, I believe it was this past Monday. And a couple people asked because gesso normally is just something that artists use, and it's white paint. But on this particular one, they wondered why it was so thick, and it's just called super heavy gesso. And I find it in the artist department at Hobby Lobby, and it's super thick because I want it to look a lot like plaster. And I just kind of slather it on a lot and then let it dry really well. Now, this is the IOD Kindest Regards stamp, and I'm stamping it with Stays On Black ink. And I'm going to be stamping the whole piece of wood. After the gesso dried, then I painted it with Dixie Belle chiffon, Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And I'm just stamping it all up. Now, because there's so much texture on this piece of wood with that gesso, the stamp is not going to stamp really well. It's going to be kind of spotty here and there. And I still want you to be able to see the script all over it, even though it's still going to be pretty faint. So I just kind of do little pieces here and there and just push it down in the spots that don't pick up the ink initially, just so that you'll have the script all over it. And it's still going to be hidden right in the middle, but I particularly want it on the outside of the piece of wood. And a lot of people really like this particular stamp. Okay, now this transfer, look at this beautiful lady. Oh, she's so, so pretty. And this transfer, it's called Victorian Treasure, and I will link it in the description box below. And it has some really, really pretty transfers in it. And this is actually one of the small transfers. There's another transfer in the set that I want to figure out the best way to use it because it's so, so pretty. And this just is the back of that little oval frame over to the right. That's just the backing of it. And I just painted it with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream and sealed it. And then I'm putting the transfer on it. And then I'm just going to attach that to the back of the frame. And then I will be attaching that to that block of wood. But isn't she so pretty? It's like she's in a field of wildflowers. And there was a little spot at the bottom that there wasn't going to be a transfer. So there was a little scrap of that transfer left over that I cut off on the side. So I just kind of stuck it down at the bottom so it wouldn't look like it was missing a part of it. And then I just kind of burnish it on. And then I don't paint the back of it because I'm actually going to be gluing it on. Now, the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the IOD Swags mold. And this time I'm using just air dry clay because I want to be able to move this around just a little bit and mold it to the shape that I want it. So that's why I'm using air dry clay this time. And if you've not used air dry clay, you make sure to put cornstarch in the mold, and then you just press it down with your thumb. And then I've got like a little old Lowe's gift card that I just kind of scrape across the back of it very gently to kind of pull off any extra. And there's two more little other pieces of that Swags mold that's going to hang down from what you saw me mold while ago. And then there's two little round buttons that will be going on that piece of wood as well. So you'll see how I add it all together in just a minute. But now this particular mold is by Redesign with Prima. And I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put it in the description box below. And I'm making this one out of resin. And let me tell you why. Because part of it is going to barely hang off the top of the block of wood. And so I needed it to be something that was permanent. And then I had a little bit of resin left, so I just kind of poured it in that other one. And so I'm putting this on with Tite Bond glue, and I put that up at the top. But isn't that just so pretty? It's so dainty looking. Now, what I've already done is I laid that frame down on the block of the wood, and then I took that swag mold and I kind of laid it across so I could kind of maneuver it like what I wanted to. And then I took it off and let it set up like that, and then I painted it. And then after it was all through dry, after I painted it, then I came back and put it on with Tite Bond glue, because I didn't want to go on and attach it to the sign and then try to paint that particular mold. So when you do that with clay, as long as you kind of set it up like what you want it to and lay it off to the side, if it dries up just a little bit, it's already going to be set up. And so I'm putting that swag all around the top. And then these kind of look like little, maybe teardrop earrings that just hang down from the swag on the side. And then those two little buttons are down at the bottom on either side. So I had not glued on the frame yet because I wanted to make sure that I got that swag mold exactly where I wanted it before I put that frame down, because once that Tite Bond glue sets up, I didn't want to have to try to pull it up if it wasn't right. And there for a little bit, a couple days, I just kind of let it sit. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to finish it off because it was rather plain. I needed something to kind of pull out the details. And so my mom suggested that I just dry brush black over it. And it just, not very much at all, but it picks up the details on all of those molds. And then she suggested that I put a little bit more black on those teardrop pieces, kind of like you would see on a tassel. But it's just dark enough to where you can see the detail, but not so bold that it really stands out. And then I also dry brushed a little bit around the frame as well. And so then I was happy with it. And I could have gone back and maybe put some gold gilding wax on it or, something else. But I was happy with it at this point. And I just think it's so, so pretty. And I can use it as a shelf sitter, or I could put a hanger on it. But it's just so pretty and elegant and cottage core. And I just love it. So it's kind of a mix between, do I like the cosmetic bag or the cosmetic case or this sign the most? I'm not real sure. It's a pretty hard call for me, but I like both of these a lot. So what do you think? What's been your favorite so far today? And look at that mold. Isn't that just beautiful? I just love it. I'm so excited. And that mold that has that trim on it has another bigger mold on it that you can use. And so it's a really good mold for any kind of trim that you might need later on. But I'll make sure to link all this in the description box below. But isn't she beautiful? Now, I have blonde hair, but I think she has gorgeous hair. And I love that dress that she has on. It's just so dainty looking with all the lace. I guess I was just born in a different time. I certainly don't dress like that, but I love looking at pictures like that. So friends, here we are. We're at the end of the video. And I hope you liked it today. Make sure to comment. Tell me what was your favorite. And really what I want you to also tell me is, what would you do with that medallion on that little cabinet? Would you change the color of it? Would you take it off? I'm not real sure. To me, it wasn't necessarily about the color of it. But I wanted you to see this new decoupage paper because it is so pretty. But I wanted you to see that you can take resin pieces like that and you can punch a hole in them or drill a hole in them once it's set up. And then you can use it as medallions on like drawers for your dressers and things like that. And then there's my sweet little glam pumpkin. I haven't got any more for my next coming videos, but if I head by the Dollar Tree, I might have to pick up a couple more of those flat pumpkins because those are so much fun to make. And then at the end of the season, they will store really well. But thank you so much for stopping by. We are at over 3,000 subscribers in our Farm Fresh Designs 59 family, and I love that you're a part of it. So make sure to give me a thumbs up today if you like this video, and subscribe to my channel and share it out with your friends. And as we draw closer to the Christmas season, I can't wait to show you some more things. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to have a new video up Monday afternoon. Thank you so much.